You hear the alarm, you throw back the covers, you're on your feet and moving before your eyes have even focused. Stop. That right there, that ordinary little burst you've done every morning for decades is the single most dangerous thing you do all day. The most dangerous 60 seconds you'll live through, and they happen before your first sip of coffee. And here's the part that stayed with me. Nobody over 65 ever actually needed to live through them. My grandfather knew that. He never read a study in his life. But every morning in that cold farmhouse, I watched him sit on the edge of the bed with both feet on the floorboards, resting his hands on his knees, breathing slow, like he was waiting for permission from his own body before he stood. I thought he was just old and slow. I know now he was doing something every cardiologist would beg you to do today. There's a study from 1985, published in one of the most respected medical journals in the world, that proves my grandfather right, and it names the exact window when the human heart is most likely to fail. Stay with me, because by the end you'll be able to protect yourself tomorrow morning in your own bedroom with nothing you have to buy and nobody you have to call. Let me take you back, because I have to be honest with you about how wrong I was. For most of my adult life, I was proud of how fast I got out of bed. I thought it was discipline. I thought springing up the second the alarm went off meant I was strong, sharp, still in the game. My father used to sit on the edge of that bed for a full minute or two before rising, and I remember being a young man and quietly judging him for it. I thought he'd gone soft. I thought that pause was old age creeping in. I spent 40 years doing it my way. Jolt, awake, feet on the floor, up, moving, into the kitchen, coffee on, radio on, day started. I was proud of it. I bragged about it. And the whole time I was doing the one thing my own father had silently protected himself against every single morning of his later life. Here's what I didn't understand back then. When you're asleep, your entire system slows down and settles. Your heart rate drops. Your blood pressure falls to its lowest point of the whole day, usually somewhere in the small hours of the morning. Your blood, sitting still for hours, actually gets thicker. Everything in you is idling, resting, conserving, and then the alarm screams. In that instant, if you launch yourself upright, you are demanding that a resting, thickened, slowed down system slam from 0 to full speed in the space of a second or two. Your heart has to suddenly pump against gravity to get blood up to your brain. Your blood pressure has to spike hard and fast to catch up. And that violent spike, first thing in the morning, is exactly what the old folks avoided without ever being able to explain why. My father couldn't have told you about blood pressure curves. But he knew, the way people used to know things, that you don't yank a cold engine into gear on a winter morning. You let it warm. You give it a moment. He learned it from his father, who learned it in a time when nobody had a screaming electric alarm clock inches from their skull, jerking them from sleep to standing in one brutal motion. That's the first thing we lost. Not knowledge from a book. Knowledge from the body, passed down, and then quietly dropped in a single generation. My generation. The generation that decided slow meant weak. But knowing the pause matters is one thing. What convinced me, what actually scared me into changing, was learning exactly when the danger lands and how much bigger it is than I ever imagined. Let me tell you about that study, because it changed how I see every morning of my life. In 1985, a team of researchers led by a doctor named James Muller published work in the New England Journal of Medicine looking at something nobody had mapped so clearly before. They asked a simple question. Is there a specific time of day when heart attacks are most likely to strike? Not vaguely, precisely, by the clock. What they found should be printed on every alarm clock ever sold. Heart attacks are not spread evenly across the 24 hours. They cluster, they pile up, and the peak, the single most dangerous stretch of the entire day, runs from roughly 6 in the morning until around noon. In those morning hours, the risk of a heart attack jumps by something on the order of 40% compared to the rest of the day. 40%. Not a small bump, a steep, measurable, deadly climb. And it happens in the exact hours when most of us are dragging ourselves out of bed and rushing to start the day. And it wasn't just heart attacks. Later work built on it. A cardiologist named Kazuomi Kario, studying blood pressure patterns, showed that what's called the morning surge, that sharp rise in pressure right after waking, is itself a powerful predictor of stroke in older adults. The steeper your morning spike, the higher your risk. People with the sharpest morning surges had dramatically more strokes than those whose pressure rose gently. Now put those two things together and sit with it for a second. The most dangerous hours of the day are the morning hours. The thing that drives a big part of that danger is the sudden surge in blood pressure right after you wake. And what do most of us do the moment we wake? We trigger that surge on purpose, as hard and as fast as we possibly can, by exploding out of bed. We take the most fragile moment of the day and we make it worse. When I first read those numbers, I thought about my father on the edge of that bed. I thought about that slow minute I used to mock, and I realized he wasn't being weak. He was easing his body across the single most dangerous threshold of the day, gently, the way you'd carry something precious across an icy porch. One careful step at a time. There's more to that surge, too, and it's worth understanding because it tells you exactly why the pause works. When you first wake, your body releases a wave of a hormone called cortisol. It's your natural wake-up signal, and it peaks in the early morning. Cortisol tightens your blood vessels and nudges your pressure up. At the same time, after hours lying flat and losing water through your breath and your skin, your blood is at its thickest and slowest of the day. Thicker blood, tighter vessels, a heart being asked to leap into action all at once. That's the storm my grandfather sat quietly through every morning while I was busy congratulating myself for jumping up like a jackrabbit. So the fix starts to become obvious. Don't ask your body to make that leap in one violent motion. Spread it out. Give the surge somewhere gentle to go. If this was common knowledge, if our grandparents did it by instinct, if the research confirmed it decades ago, then how on earth did an entire generation forget it? How did something this simple, this free, this life-saving just vanish from ordinary life? Because it didn't vanish by accident. And this is where the story gets uncomfortable. Think about how our grandparents actually woke up. For most of human history, people woke with the light. The sky went gray, then gold, and the body surfaced slowly out of sleep the way it was built to gradually, over many minutes, as the light grew. There was no jolt. There was a rooster, maybe, or the cold, or the simple return of day. Waking was a slope, not a cliff. Then came the loud, cheap, mechanical alarm clock in every bedroom, and later the electric one, and later still the phone screaming on the nightstand. And with it came a whole new idea about mornings, that the goal was speed, up and at 'em. Rise and grind, hit the ground running. We built an entire culture that treated the fast, violent wake-up as a badge of honor and the slow, careful one as laziness. Who benefits when you believe that rushing is virtue? Think about it. A whole economy grew up around the frantic morning. The stronger the jolt, the more you feel you need to fix the wreckage it leaves behind. The groggy fog, the pounding start, the shakiness that's not normal, that's the aftermath of dragging a resting body over a cliff. And there's a product for every symptom of it. The bigger, faster, louder the wake-up, the more coffee you need to feel human, the more supplements you're sold to steady your nerves, the more gadgets that promise to track your sleep and optimize your mornings and monitor the very numbers you're spiking by rushing. We were handed the problem and then sold the solutions, and somewhere in the middle, the free answer our grandparents used, just slow down for 1 minute, got buried under all of it. It was too simple to sell. Ah, nobody makes money from a man sitting quietly on the edge of his bed breathing. And doctors, bless them, are so busy managing the damage, the medications, the stents, the emergencies that almost nobody has time to teach the 90-second habit that could have kept you out of the office in the first place. Prevention that costs nothing gets no advertising budget. It gets forgotten. That's what got me angry, honestly. Not that the knowledge was wrong, that it was right and free, and we let it slip away and then paid through the nose for pale imitations of it. My grandfather's quiet minute was worth more than a cabinet full of the things I've bought over the years to feel better in the morning. So let me give it back to you, because now that you understand the danger, you deserve to know exactly what to do about it step by step, starting tomorrow. And that costs you nothing but a minute or two of the morning you were about to waste rushing anyway. If this kind of forgotten, practical wisdom speaks to you, the kind that costs nothing and comes straight from people who actually lived long and well, then I want to mention that I've put together a complete guide called Start Strong, part of a series that also includes Senior Mastery and Senior System. These books gather everything I've learned about protecting your mornings, your body, and your independence as the years go on, written plainly, the way your grandfather would have explained it, without anything to sell you at the end. You'll find the details in the description below, and I think you'll recognize the voice the moment you open the first page. But here's the question that started to gnaw at me, and maybe it's gnawing at you right now. And I know what some of you are thinking right now. You're thinking, this sounds like advice for people with fancy bedrooms and personal trainers and all the time in the world. You're thinking, I live alone, I've got a bad hip, I've got a small place and a cheap bed. This isn't for someone like me. I want you to hear me clearly. This next part is built for exactly you, the person alone in a quiet house, the person who can't afford one more gadget or pill, the person who just wants to get through the morning safely with what they already have. This costs nothing. It requires no equipment, and you can do it lying in the same bed you're in every night. Here's the whole thing. When you wake up tomorrow, before you move a muscle, just stay lying down for a moment and let yourself actually arrive in the day. Don't reach for the phone. Don't lurch. Just be awake, flat, for a slow count. I count to 60 in my head, unhurried. That alone lets your heart rate and your pressure start climbing on their own gentle schedule instead of being kicked up a flight of stairs. While you're still lying there, do this next part, and this is the piece almost nobody knows. Point your toes down, then flex them back up toward your shins. Do it slowly, 10 or 12 times, both feet. Then rotate your ankles in slow circles, one direction then the other. It looks like nothing. It feels like nothing. But those calf and ankle movements are working like a second pump, squeezing blood up out of your legs and back toward your heart before you ever stand. You're priming the pump before you demand it work against gravity. Sailors and soldiers who had to stand at attention for long stretches learned versions of this to keep from fainting. You flex the legs, you keep the blood moving, you don't let it pool. Then, and only then, roll onto your side and use your arm to push yourself up to sitting. Don't crunch straight up from your back. Now sit on the edge of the bed, both feet flat on the floor, hands resting on your knees. Exactly the way my father sat, the way I used to mock. And here you stay for another slow count, maybe 30 seconds, maybe a full minute. Breathe in slow through your nose, out slow through your mouth. Let your body understand that it's up right now. Let the blood find its new level while you're still safely seated and can't fall. Only after that do you stand. And when you stand, do it slow, with a hand on the nightstand or the wall for the first few days until you trust it. If you feel even a flicker of lightheadedness, sit right back down. That flicker is the exact warning our rushing hides from us. When you go slow, your body gets to tell you the truth about how it's doing. That's it. Lie still and breathe. Pump the ankles, sit on the edge, then rise. 3 or 4 minutes total, and every one of those minutes is spent easing across the most dangerous threshold of your day instead of sprinting over it blind. I want you to notice something about that little routine. Every single piece of it is something a body already knows how to do. There's nothing to install, nothing to charge, nothing to reorder when it runs out. It is the exact opposite of everything we've been sold. And it works whether you're 70 and spry or 85 and unsteady, whether you sleep in a grand bed or a narrow cot, whether there's someone in the house or nobody at all. Your grandmother could have taught it to you in 30 seconds flat, and she probably tried, and we probably didn't listen. But there's one more piece, and this is the part I saved for last, because when I found it, it stopped me cold. This is the piece that turns a good morning habit into something our ancestors treated as almost sacred, and it's been hiding in plain sight for a very long time. I told you your blood is at its thickest and slowest first thing in the morning. Part of that is simply because you've gone all night without a drop of water. Every breath you exhale carries moisture out of your body. Hour after hour, all night long, you dry out a little. By dawn, after 7 or 8 hours with nothing to drink, your blood is more concentrated, thicker, stickier than at any other point in the day. And thick, sticky blood in the morning is exactly the condition where clots are most likely to form. It's the missing link that ties the whole morning danger together. Now here's what I found. Long before anyone was measuring blood viscosity in a laboratory, ordinary people kept a glass of water by the bed and drank it before they ever set foot on the floor. I remember a chipped enamel cup that lived on my grandmother's nightstand, and I remember her drinking from it in the dark before she'd so much as sat up. I always thought it was just habit, just an old woman's fuss. It wasn't. In household guidance passed down through the late 1800s and into the early 20th century, in the plain-spoken health advice of that era, keeping water at the bedside and drinking on waking was treated as simple common sense, a way to, in their words, thin the blood and wake the system gently before rising. They didn't have the science. They had the result. They watched over generations, and they saw that the people who drank on waking rose steadier and fared better. Modern research quietly agrees. Overnight dehydration measurably thickens the blood, and rehydrating first thing helps bring it back toward normal. In parts of the world where drinking water immediately upon waking became a cultural ritual, it's been studied and praised for exactly this reason. It was never a miracle. It was never magic. It was our great-grandparents noticing something true and building a small daily habit around it, a habit that got thrown out with the enamel cup somewhere in the rush of the modern age. So here is the finale, the whole thing woven together, the way it was always meant to be done. Tonight, before you sleep, fill a glass with water and set it on your nightstand. Not a fancy bottle, any glass you own. When you wake tomorrow, before you move, reach over and drink it slowly while you're still lying down or just barely propped up. You're thinning that thick morning blood before you ask your heart to do a single hard thing. Then lie still for your slow count. Then pump your ankles and rotate your feet to prime the pump in your legs. Then roll to your side, push up, and sit on the edge of the bed with your feet flat and your hands on your knees, breathing slow. And then gently you rise into your day. Water, stillness, the ankles, the edge of the bed, then standing. That's the entire lost ritual, and there isn't a single dollar in it. Look at what that sequence actually does, all together. The water thins the blood that thickened overnight. The stillness lets your pressure rise on its own gentle slope instead of being slammed upward. The ankle pumps move that blood up out of your legs so your heart isn't fighting gravity from a dead stop. The edge of the bed gives your whole system a safe landing where it can adjust before you're ever at risk of falling. Every one of those pieces answers one specific part of the danger those researchers measured. It's not folklore dressed up as science. It's science that folk wisdom arrived at first by watching, by living long, by paying attention and then handing it down until we stop taking it. I think about how close I came to never knowing this. 40 years of jumping up, 40 years of proud, stupid speed, and the whole time the answer was in a chipped enamel cup and a quiet minute on the edge of a bed. My grandfather sat through the most dangerous minute of the day on purpose every single morning and got up steady, and I thought he was slow. He wasn't slow. He was surviving gracefully, the exact way people used to know how to survive before we traded all that quiet knowing for noise and hurry and a shelf full of things to buy. You have it back now. That's what this really is. Not a tip, not a trick. A piece of practical, hard-won wisdom that your own people knew and that got buried under an alarm clock and a marketing budget dug back up and set in your hands, ready to use tomorrow morning before the sun is even fully up. So let me leave you with this. You didn't just learn a morning routine today. You took back a piece of self-reliance that your family used to own outright, the plain confidence that the most dangerous moment of your day can be handled by you, alone, in your own room, with a glass of water and a little patience and nothing else. That's who you are. You're the kind of person who trusts what actually works over what somebody's trying to sell you. You always were. You just needed someone to remind you that the old way was never broken, it was only forgotten. Now I want to hear from you. Tell me this. Honestly, when you were growing up, do you remember someone in your house who sat on the edge of the bed before rising or kept a glass of water on the nightstand the way my grandmother did? Who was it? What did they know that we forgot? Leave it in the comments, because I read them, and these small family memories are exactly how this knowledge gets saved. And tell me where you're watching from, too. I love knowing how far these old lessons travel. If getting this back meant something to you, then come stand with the rest of us who are quietly digging up everything the modern world buried and putting it back to work in our own homes. That's what we do here. Because I've got another one coming that I can't wait to share, an old nighttime habit our grandparents swore kept their minds sharp into their 90s. Something so ordinary you've walked past it 1,000 times and never once suspected what it was really doing. Stay with me, and I'll hand that one back to you two. That step-by-step pause I traced to my grandfather? I couldn't fit all of it here. So inside the Wise Living Circle, I pick up right where this video left off. And if something's unclear, ask me your own question. A real person answers, not a machine. You won't be alone. Folks like you are already inside. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen, and you can cancel anytime, one click.